Greetings. Good old Mr. H here. We are going to talk about some of the major battles in the Revolutionary War today. The war is going to end today. We're going to be recognized even by Great Britain with the Treaty of Paris officially as our own independent nation. Lesson 3 is entitled How Did the 13 Colonies Win Their Independence? Like I said, we're going to talk about some of the major battles of the Revolutionary War. We are also going to describe the American victory at Yorktown, which was the last battle of the American Revolution. We're going to outline the major points of the 1783 Treaty of Paris, which was what officially recognized us by Great Britain, by the world, as an independent nation, even though the Declaration of Independence, 1776, that's when we considered ourselves independent. All right, so moving along. I'm not going to play the videos here. I'm going to have you watch those on your own. If you are having trouble opening any of the links, let me know, and I will try to make sure that they are watchable for you. Okay, so the war shifts to the Middle States. The British end up taking New York City. Why? Well, they wanted New York's harbor. And also they thought if they could control New York and the Hudson River, they could kind of cut off the New England states from the Middle States. Divide and conquer is that battle plan. And eventually Great Britain does take control of New York. So Washington needs a spy to go into New York and see what their plans are. Well, a man by the name of Nathan Hale, who was a school teacher, 21 years old, from Connecticut, entered the city in disguise. He was captured by the British. He was convicted of spying and he was hanged. And as he faced execution, Hale's last words were, "I only regret that I have but one life to lose for my country." We have a high school here in West Allis Hale, that's named after Nathan Hale. Click on the video and watch a little bit about his short life, 21 years old. Washington then retreats into New Jersey, and by this time the American Revolution looked like a lost cause. Washington and his troops are on the run. He only has 6,000 troops left, and he'd hoped to find some recruits in New Jersey. However, fewer than 100 soldiers join the army. So General Howe, the British general, was sure that Washington eventually would surrender during the winter. That was not to be. So Howe and his army hunker down. They spend Christmas in New York. And then Washington refused to be discouraged by the problems facing his troops, and so he decided to attack the British troops in New Jersey. And on Christmas night, 1776, Washington and his soldiers rode back across the icy Delaware in the dead of night. And they surprised 1,400 Hessians in the middle of the night. They were sleeping. They had just celebrated Christmas, were sleeping soundly, and the Continental Army surprises them and captures weapons, supplies, and takes about 1,000 prisoners. And so troops under General Cornwallis then rush toward Trenton, and Washington slips away. Okay, so then the British plan to crush the Patriots. That's letter E there. In 1777, the king orders the British generals to take control of the Hudson River Valley as part of their battle plan. And if they succeeded, again, they would cut New England off from the rest of the colonies, or states, as they're called now. The First Army is stationed at Fort Oswego. So they had kind of like a three-pronged attack. One army was going to do one thing, and the other army was going to do another thing. And then they would end up surrounding them, or the colonists, the Patriots. But from the start, it was unsuccessful. The army from Fort Oswego fought one bloody skirmish with the American troops. Then the other army heard rumors of a large American force approaching, and so they hightailed it into Canada. And General Howe ignored his orders to march to Albany. So that didn't quite work out the way they had planned. The Patriots end up winning a victory at Saratoga. General Burgoyne's march from Canada began well, but his troops captured Fort Ticonderoga from the Patriots. We're in 1777 now, and Burgoyne was overconfident by his soldiers, or he was named Gentleman Johnny by his soldiers, and Burgoyne was overconfident. He liked to travel slowly, and he liked to throw lavish parties in between battles. That's a good battle plan. And his slow pace gave the Patriots a chance to prepare. And they ended up cutting down a bunch of trees. They ended up burning crops, driving off cattle, leaving the countryside bare of supplies. And when Burgoyne sent 700 German soldiers to search for supplies, the Patriots surrounded and defeated them at Bennington in what is today Vermont. Burgoyne's troops then met the main American forces near Saratoga, New York. And outnumbered, low on supplies, the British were defeated. General Burgoyne surrenders his entire force of 6,000 troops on October 17th, 1777. The Battle of Saratoga was very important. It was a turning point in the Revolutionary War. By defeating Burgoyne, the Patriots won the support of the French, and they signed a Treaty of Alliance in 1778. And so the French took a look at what the Americans were doing and go, they might win this. And so they sent troops, money, and supplies to help the Patriots win the war. And then the winter of Valley Forge happened, or at Valley Forge happened. Washington and his troops, they set up camp near Valley Forge, which is in Pennsylvania, and it was a rough, bitter winter for the Patriot troops. Long huts provided the only shelter from wind and snow. All of the men suffered from hunger. Many lacked the warm clothes necessary to survive a winter and to protect them from the bitter cold. Washington described conditions at Valley Forge in a letter to Congress that you can read in your books on page 170. That is a primary source of history, which is always better than secondary. But in spite of the hardships, the Continental soldiers didn't give up hope. And all winter long, they actually made good use of their time together as they were trying to keep warm. Baron von Steuben whipped the troops into shape. They did drills, and they got better. And when spring came, the Continental Army was better trained than ever before. The fighting ends in the Middle States, and Benedict Arnold is also something that's mentioned. There's a video on him as well. When you hear the word traitor, think of Benedict Arnold. Some people call me a Benedict Arnold because I used to be a Packer fan, and now I'm a Viking fan. So why is Benedict Arnold synonymous with traitor? Because he was a patriot. And then what he did is he went to the British and said, hey, I got some information for you. I would like to spy for you. Well, this plot ends up being discovered, and he ends up fighting with the British the rest of the Revolutionary War. So ended up being on the losing side on that one, I guess. All right, looking to advance the slide here. Not sure how to do that. There we go. Okay. So the war is now on the frontier and at the sea, and actually, remember that we did not have a navy, and so what we ended up doing is we had some privateers. So these were ships privately owned by authorized by the government to attack and capture enemy ships, and it was kind of a win-win because the Americans, had someone making sure the British didn't advance, or halting the British Navy in the seas. Yet also the privateers could keep some of the things that they stole from the British ships. Now, in the later years, British men of war, these were ships that were heavily armed warships. They kept a close watch along the coast for privateers, and so that kind of deterred a lot of the privateers from showing up. The Patriots end up building a navy. And eventually, with the help of France, they organized a navy of about 50 ships, but they couldn't really defeat the huge British fleet. But it did score many vital victories over the British, and a key victory came with the Bonhomme Richard. John Paul Jones, who was the Scottish sea captain, who actually was a Virginian, had a skirmish with a British man of war, the Serapis, and Jones looked like his ship was going to sink, and the British commander shouted, "Have you lowered your flag yet?" Well, that was a sign of surrender. Jones responds with, "I have not yet begun to fight." And sure enough, after 3 hours of fighting, the British ship ends up surrendering. All right, so after 3 years of fighting, now the fighting shifts to the southern states, and the Patriots start to get victory after victory, and they end up cornering General Cornwallis in the South. And he led his troops north into Virginia. They set up camp at Yorktown, which is located on a peninsula in Chesapeake Bay. Battle of Yorktown, there's a video there you can watch. The overconfident Cornwallis, and by the way, all these generals, even Great Britain was overconfident. They didn't think that we had a chance to win this. Cornwallis was warned that Yorktown is open for attack, and he thought that even if the Americans attacked by land, the British fleet would supply him by sea. Well, then the French fleet shows up and blocks the port, making sure that no supplies can come into Yorktown for the British, cutting Cornwallis off from all of his supply ships. Washington then leads his troops north to Yorktown. The Patriots were joined by 6,000 French troops, and the 17,000 American and French troops trapped Cornwallis in Yorktown. Cornwallis, rather, ends up surrendering. Okay, he was angry. He was ashamed at his defeat, and he wouldn't even. Usually, the sign of surrender is you give the other general your sword. He wouldn't meet Washington or the French generals. He had someone else hand Washington the sword. He was ashamed, and Great Britain now recognizes America as independent. At the time, however, no one was sure that peace would be declared, and the United States sends a delegation of Ben Franklin, John Jay, John Adams, and Henry Laurens to Paris to negotiate. What does it mean to negotiate? To discuss arrangements for a peace agreement. So the British wanted a quick end to the war. They also wanted to weaken the American-French alliance. So in order to weaken the French alliance, they actually gave more concessions to the Americans than most people thought that they would. Okay, so the Treaty of Paris is signed 1783, and this Treaty of Paris, what it did is it ended up recognizing the United States as an independent nation. Okay, and under the terms of the treaty, Spain gets Florida, rather. And the U.S. receives a territory that stretched from Canada to Florida and from the Atlantic to the Mississippi, so all of that land. The United States and Britain could both trade on the Mississippi River. That was one of the stipulations, and America could fish in Canadian waters. So the Americans promised to recommend that states pay their war debts and return Loyalist property. That was the concession that the Americans made. Okay, so we're the United States of America now, officially by the Treaty of Paris in 1783. Unofficially, we were independent since 1776. All right, everybody, thank you for listening, boys and girls. Make sure you watch those videos, and again, if you can't access any of them, let me know, and I will unblock them for you.